this is just a little samba.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Dux Raymond Sai, and very excited this morning to talk about Project 2010, Office 365, Windows 7.5 Mango, and iPhone 5. You got that? No? Thank you for being here. I know it's early in the morning. There's a lot of sessions to choose from, but I really appreciate you guys being here. Now, if you're wondering what's the deal with this survey I have up here, this is actually a true survey that the Project Management Institute put out about a year and a half ago. They asked certified project managers around the world what tool they rely on for project management. And 3 months later, the results came back. And boy, was I shocked. Because I'm like, it's 2009. Everybody had an iPhone at that time, because Windows Phone 7 wasn't out yet. Everybody had DVR at home, because they had to record American Idol. You can't miss that. You had GPS in their cars, and the number one tool project managers use in 2009 is email. A 1973 technology. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of you might be thinking, what's wrong with that, Dux? It works. It's easy. I shoot an email, I get it done. Nothing wrong. But all I'm saying is, it could be better. And some of you might say, well, I don't believe that, Dux. Email? You're kidding, aren't you? Well, think about it. When you're in a project, and somebody asks you, where's that status update? Let me check my email. Where's that expense report? Let me check my email. What's going on with that vendor? Let me check my email. Now, it might not be true for this group because we're better than that. We know SharePoint. But in the general population, email is the number one tool. And thought of sharing that interesting stat with everybody because that looks at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you leverage tools that we have, that we use, and make it better for project management. My name is Dux Raymond Sai. Feel free to call me Dux. I will not be offended by that. That's my real name. Got my ducks in a row, so we're all good. And PMP, that's not a typo. There's no I in there. That stands for Project Management Professional. Very honored to be part of the Microsoft family somewhat, being a SharePoint MVP. And on a professional note, I'm the managing partner of Innovative E. So what are we going to do this morning? What we're going to do, we're going to look at tools like Project 2010, Office 365, and Windows Phone, and see how you can benefit from these tools when you work in project environments. Sure, there's a lot of whiz-bang features, but I want to tie it back to things we do in project environments that we can leverage these tools off of. More importantly, what we're going to do, we're going to focus on looking at how we use these tools based on our project management maturity. It's interesting, right? I was talking to a customer one time. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. And we're a Microsoft partner, not only in the SharePoint arena, but we're also a partner in the Project Server arena. And one customer came up to me and said, Dux, you know, we want Project Server. And I was in a meeting with the executives of that organization. We want Project Server. I came in, I said, why? Dead silence in the room. And I figured, well, maybe because I moved to the United States, my English is not good enough. I'm only here for like 12 years. Let me change my question. ¿Por qué? They laugh like that. Well, what are you talking about? I go, why do you think you need Project Server? Well, all our projects are behind, out of scope, behind schedule, over budget. People are doing their own thing, so we think Project Server will fix all that. You think? So we're going to talk about that, the idea of which tool would work best for what situation. We're going to talk about using SharePoint as a PMIS. Any PMPs in the house other than myself? All right. When did you take your PMP exam? 2004. So PMP is a professional certification for project managers. And the way it works is you study for a test, and once you pass, you get your PMP. And part of studying, you study a lot of stuff, but one of the things you study for are processes and knowledge areas. And there's things called input tools and outputs. And I'm sure you remember in tools, this acronym keeps popping up. PMIS, PMIS, PMIS. And it so happened, At least for me, after I took the test, I kind of forgot about it already. So today what we're going to do, we're going to look at what PMIS means and how we use SharePoint to build one. We're going to talk about how we integrate Microsoft Project 2010 with SharePoint all out of the box. And we're going to look at how we maximize collaboration tools in Office 365 and not only rely on email, right? And I'm not saying we're going to get rid of email. In fact, we'll make email better. So we'll look at that. We'll talk about how you build a dashboard in SharePoint. That's the secret to professional success. If you want to get promoted at work, you go back to work, look your boss in the eye and say, dashboard. That word will get you promoted, my friend. So we're going to look at how to do that. So, quick background on myself. Again, my name is Dux, managing partner of Innovative E. We're based out of DC and Atlanta, and we focus on maximizing the business value of SharePoint for your organization. So we help you with the technology, but more importantly, we help you realize the benefits of tools like SharePoint Project and Project Server, and even Office 365. I wrote the book SharePoint for Project Management, and talking about book, I'll have a book signing today at lunch. You get free books, go to Lightning Tools booth, or tomorrow you can go to the Microsoft Project booth at around lunchtime, and there's a book signing as well, so feel free to come by. Also, if you want to connect with me, there's my contact info. Best way to get in touch with me is through Twitter. And talking about Twitter, throughout my slide, I'll have my Twitter handle and the hashtag for this session, hashtag for this conference at the bottom of the slide. If you have no clue what I just talked about, I'll do a session next year in social media. Okay. So friends, let's get going here. Before we start looking at all these tools and the benefits and the wonders of Project, Office 365, and Windows Phone, let's first step back and understand when these tools would help us, right? I know to some of you in the back, the picture might be small, so I'll kind of go through it quickly with everyone. So if you look at this top left picture, this is a typical scenario of project environments, right? You look at the top left picture, it says, this is what the customer explained what they wanted. You know, like a swing with 3 chairs, okay? This is how the project leader understood. Oh, this is what you want, customer. How the analyst designed it. Chops off the tree. Very nice. How the programmer wrote it. What the consultant described. Look, with the sofa and the sunshine and angels singing. Ha! You need all this stuff, customer. How it was documented. And I thought that was our favorite activity, documentation. What operations installed. How the customer was billed. We'll get on that right tonight, right? Okay? How it was supported, and what the customer really needed. We all laugh, but I'm sure a lot of us are experiencing this situation right now. Why do you think this happens? Why do you think this happens, sir? Why do you think those things happen in project? Communication? Yeah, very good. Lack of communication, or maybe the other end of the spectrum, irrelevant communication. Don't you love it if you get copied on every single frickin' email? Has nothing to do with you. And then when the real email for you comes, you kind of miss it. Yeah? You do that all the time, right? Communication is challenge. One more. Why do you think that happens, sir? What?
Expectations.
Expectations. Assumptions. Lack of process. No standardization. It's like when you ask a developer, how much have you done this week in this work? What would the developer say? 43%. Because that sounds convincing, right? And then you ask the same question 2 days, say, how much have you done, developer? 60%. So a lot of these challenges and issues happen not because of tools. Tools don't make projects successful. I know I'm talking about tools, but I want to be clear that tools are tools. That's why in a lot of environments today where organizations think, oh, let's slam in a powerful tool, life would be great, what happens? What happens in organizations where SharePoint was just slammed in there? What would users think about it? Do you have users that don't like SharePoint? They keep complaining. You have users like that? Yeah. Right? They call it ScarePoint. So here's a tip. The next time you go back to work and you have some complaining user, look at them in the eye and say, you know, user, SharePoint doesn't suck. You suck. It's a tool. Relevant project management processes and standard is necessary, and more importantly, proper planning. You gotta do the basics. And I'm not talking about get your credentials and whatnot, but you have to realize that when we talk about project management, it's not just tools. So this is a scaled down version of a maturity model around project management. But here's something I want to stress, friends. When we look at this, this is talking about how mature organizations are with project management and the things that they should be doing. Now, a lot of us in our organization, we want to admit it or not, project teams are in this level where, hey, Toby, you're a developer IT pro, right, or something? So you should know SharePoint. Go roll out SharePoint, would you? Sure. On top of your day job. So what happens with Toby is, he doesn't have any background. He gets it done, right, on the seat of his pants. It works, maybe. And the tools he rely on for project management, paper, Word, Excel, email, very common. But what's the problem there? If every single person in the organization is doing this without any consistency and standard, not good. And when that happens, what organizations think to fix that is, you know what? Let's get a high-end tool. It will make our lives better. But what's the problem? The problem is project management is not just tools. It's these three things. You can accelerate the tool, but if these two doesn't go lockstep, guess what? Nobody's going to use it. Everybody's going to hate it. Life won't be better. So what am I proposing in this session? I am proposing that you take baby steps. You take baby steps from low maturity, take these three things and bring it up a bit. Basic project management training for people working on projects, some kind of standard, and from a tool perspective, bring it up a notch. And that's where Project Office 365 comes in. Okay? Now, the concept of a PMIS, it's the idea of having a system that helps you within your project. A PMIS is the keychain that's going to hold everything in your project. And today, the PMIS we rely on is email. Email is the central hub of our projects, which is not good. So we're going to fix that. We're going to make that better. Talking about making it better, why project then? So Dux, you're saying here, okay, from low maturity, let's move up. So I'm sure you're going to propose using Project, Office 365, SharePoint, all that good stuff. But why project? For those not familiar with project, in my own words, is really good at doing these three things. Project is a project management tool that supports schedule development and management, where you can go to project, build a schedule, but more importantly, track a schedule as well. It breaks my heart when I see customers and users, they make a really nice project schedule with fancy Gantt charts in color, and they make a printout, and that's the end of it. Nobody really uses it for tracking. Agree? If that's all you're going to use project for, just use Excel. All right? Now, project also is really good with resource management and reporting. We'll look at that. And it assumes that you are familiar with some kind of project management process. And that is another point about it being a tool. A lot of us, or a lot of people, start using this with no sound background. So it assumes that you know the steps. And I will show you the steps in this session. Why Office 365? So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar already with Office 365. I won't spend too much time on this. But the beauty with Office 365, not only comes with a lot of collaborative communication tools that works really well for project management, but I don't have to worry about the infrastructure. Literally, I go to office365.com, put in my credit card, do a 30-day free trial. 10 minutes later, I got everything that I need. So that is quite powerful. Certainly, you can have all these capabilities if you install the tools in-house, but there's other complexities around that. So Office 365 is very, very worthwhile. As a part of Office 365, SharePoint is a big platform. SharePoint in Office 365 is known as SharePoint Online, and by definition, SharePoint is the collaboration platform for the business and the web. And the beautiful part about SharePoint, specific to project management, it helps us to centralize project artifacts. Where today, again, where is it centralized? Nowhere. It's in the email, it's in the thumb drive, it's in the My Documents folder. It's in the network share, 18 folders deep. Streamline communication. It can help us provide relevant information to the right people. It can help us generate reports, and more importantly, listen, interacts with other tools that we are well familiar with in project management. So with that being said, here's what I'd like to do. I want to get started and look at all these wonderful tools from a typical project life cycle. We're going to look at it with a scenario where I start off with a project, it gets initiated, and then planning, and then running the project. So we'll look at it that way, and we'll see how all these tools come in and be quite beneficial. So how should we maximize all these things? So first off, again, everyone hopefully should have a sound project management process. And one of the first things, for example, let's come up with a fictitious company. So let's say I work for a company called SharePoint Cafe. We open coffee shops around the world, and my job is I'm a project manager that opens coffee shops for SharePoint Cafe. Everybody with me? So as a part of our process, when a project gets initiated, one of the first things I have to do is to create a PMIS for my project. So from that point onwards, everything I need to capture is centralized and made available to the right people. So let's do that. So let's say, let me turn off Pandora here. So let's say this is my PMO's site. And PMO stands for Project Management Office. Notice that it should look familiar to you. I didn't do any heavy custom tweaking here. This, by the way, friends, is live up on Office 365. So let's say as a part of my process in my organization, the first thing I have to do, yes, I'm using a Mac. I got like shock look. And that's the other point. That's the beauty with Office 365. I don't have to have Windows. I can use a Mac. I can use an iPad. It's all good. Now, so as a part of my process, the first thing I have to do as a project manager, okay, I got to create this PMIS. And the way I do that in SharePoint Online is to create a new site. Now, one of the good things that happen in my organization, certainly there's a lot of different site templates available that can help me get started. But one of the things that happened when we rolled out Office 365, IT was in charge. IT decided that IT wants to talk with us project managers and understand the things we do in a specific project so they can create a template for us. Isn't that nice? IT talking to the business, working together. So part of what IT did, IT created a site template for a specific coffee shop project, such as what I'm going to do. And I got trained for about an hour or so how to use it. So off I go. So now I'm going to pick this site template. I'm going to call it the, let's say I need, my next project is to open a coffee shop in Manila, Philippines. I'm originally from there. And we have standards on how we call things and how we name things around our SharePoint governance. And we also, the way we provision this is based on who you are, what your project is. It's only limited to that team. So that's why I selected only people that are part of this project can come to this PMIS. Now, as SharePoint Online is provisioning, it's building my PMIS, let's kind of talk and think about what I just did here. 25 years ago, if you're a project manager and you needed a website or a repository to store your project artifacts, how do you get one if you're not technical? How do you get one? Who do you talk to? IT, right? You fill in a ticket request and say, "Dear IT, I bought you dinner last night. Can you get me a website?" You get it right away? No. It depends on who you are, what you do, the priority of your project, and you don't get a collaborative PMIS right away. So what just happened here? Not only did I help myself, I can also define who can come to PMIS. So I'm going to add my colleague, Mike, who's going to be part of this project. And notice me, the non-technical project manager, is doing all this stuff. I'm going to click OK. And voila, next thing I see, it's a full-blown project template for this type of project. Now, just to prove to you that the experience is similar, regardless if I use Safari in the Mac or just use straight up SharePoint. So let me go to my new site here. So from IE, it's the exact same thing. Now, what do I have in this site template? This site template, again, it should look familiar to you, but it has a component that's relevant for what I do as a project manager. It has announcements where people can put announcements. It has discussion board. It has all the documents I need for the project pre-populated right there. That makes my life as a PM much easier. I don't have to go and look around. Where are those templates again? Let me check my network share. Let me call Joey. Hey, Joey, where's that file? It's all there, centralized for this specific project. Now, some of you are looking at this and go, wow, that looks great. It's cool. What I want to do next is I'm going to go ahead, it's just the process in the organization. So since I got my PMIS started, let me go ahead and schedule our kickoff meeting. So just to make sure it's in the calendar, let's schedule the kickoff meeting for, let's see, next week, okay? And then what I'll do is, let's see, everything looks good. I'll schedule the kickoff from 3 to 4. Here's a project management tip, friends. If you want things get done, if you can handle it, or if you could do it, schedule the meetings in the afternoon. If you have meetings in the morning, people go in and start talking about X Factor, American Idol. If you have a 3 o'clock meeting, you get done like in 30 minutes. Okay, so let me hit save and notice that the schedule is there. Now, some of you are looking at this and, yeah, Dux, it's great, whoop-de-doo, it's all good. But, it's a website, right? I can do this with other tools. Why can't I just go to competitive products? It's free, open source, and I could do the exact same thing. Well, here's something you cannot do. The beauty with Office 365, since it's a Microsoft-based product, it's tightly integrated with tools that we use and are familiar with. So I can take my project calendar, for example, specific to this Manila Cafe project, and say, you know what? Connect this calendar to my copy of Outlook. So what we will see here, friends, is notice in my copy of Microsoft Outlook, so let me do a month schedule here. Notice that apart from having my own calendar show up, I have the calendar for the project show up as well. And since it's already integrated, I don't even have to go to the project site. Anytime a new calendar entry is entered, boom, voila, it will show up in Outlook. In addition, I can enter information from Outlook. So let's do our requirements meeting. All right. Location, conference, room A. Okay. And that should look good. Let me hit save. And once I hit save, let me take my coat off here. Notice that the meeting was entered. Now, what just happened there? I entered the requirements meeting from my copy of Outlook, but essentially, that same set of information, if I go back to my project calendar in my PMIS, voila, requirements meeting is there as well. The beauty of this is I don't have to deal with entering data in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different places. That's where we waste our time. Oh, I got to put it in this system. I got to stick it in Excel. I got to stick it in the most powerful database out there. Yes, sir. Where's my Exchange located? It's all in Office 365. Okay. We could talk about that a little later. Okay. I'll talk about different scenarios. All right. So everything's on Office 365, and that's again the beauty. I don't have to worry about configuring the infrastructure. It just works. Now, another point to this, right? Without entering multiple times, it's not limited to the calendar. I can go to my project documents in SharePoint. It's known as your document library. What I just did with my calendar, I can go to my document library and pretty much do the same thing. I can say connect to Outlook. And what's going to happen is all these project-related documents, I have to connect it once, all these project-related documents will now show up in my copy of Outlook. And that way, anytime there's a new document that gets uploaded to the project site or the PMIS, boom, I'll see it. I can preview it in Outlook. I don't know about you, but Outlook is my personal command center. I go to work every day, I fire up Outlook, that stays up all day. Wouldn't it be great if I interact with my PMIS just through Outlook? Because I'm kind of used to that, where the information is centralized in my PMIS up on Office 365. Now, part of the process. When I get started with my project, during initiation, I can create a PMIS. Next, once I get started with planning, the next step I would like to do is start developing my project schedule. The idea is, hopefully, you do sound project management practices before you start firing up tools. You've developed your work breakdown structure. If you're not familiar with that concept, I've just tweeted a 1-hour video on fundamentals of project management planning, and I share the concept of WBS. But once you have your work breakdown structure defined, you can start building your schedule. And to do that effectively, you can maximize Microsoft Project. So let's do that. The beauty of having everything templatized, what we see here is we do this all the time. We open coffee shops around the world, so our schedule is kind of templatized already. So as you can see, in the document library, I have a Microsoft Project file here called Cafe Project. So let me go ahead and hit Edit in Microsoft Project. So as I do that, it's going to open up in Microsoft Project. Let me make sure I did click it. Let's see. No, I didn't click it. I think it's still, oh, there you go. So it's going to open up in Microsoft Project, and off of that templatized Microsoft Project schedule, I can start creating what the project schedule looks like. So it's still thinking, and once it's up, as I start working on it, the information is stored still in Office 365, centralized, but me as a project manager, I can interact with it using Microsoft Project. So for those that haven't seen Project 2010, this is it. Looks totally different than 2007. Really enhanced interface, very similar to Office 2010 tools. You got the ribbon interface. And it's a very powerful tool. At least for this purpose, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll just show you some of the basics. But if you follow me on Twitter, I just tweeted a 2-hour step-by-step on how to use Microsoft Project 2010. It's full-blown video. You can watch it for free. So what am I going to do as a PM? Okay, so first things first. So the tasks are all templatized already. The estimates for the schedule is there. So what I want to do first is define when the project starts. So I click on the project tab in the ribbon interface, and I'm going to define, you know what? This coffee shop project begins in October 11. So I define the project start, and then based on that information, I will flip to a different view, or different table, I should say. All right. So notice it shows me a lot of different things. It shows me, well, if you started on October 11th, and based on the dependencies that you have, the relationships, looks like this project will end on February 25. Everybody with me? I know it's kind of small. This is being recorded, so you get a copy of this. But the power of Microsoft Project around scheduling is we don't have to figure out when things should happen. That's what the tool is for. If we put in different variables, if we change the duration, we change the start date, we add a new task, it will recalculate, reschedule it for us. So now that I have pretty much my task and my schedule defined, the next thing I want to do is define my resources. Who is going to work on this project? So I'm going to start adding resources to this project. And what I'm going to do is I'll click on the resource tab and go to my resource sheet. And in the resource sheet, I'll put the resource Dux. Okay? And that's all the resource I get. What are you complaining about, Dux? That's real world right there. And additionally, apart from putting Dux as my resource, I'll make sure I put in his availability, because I know Dux told me he'll be going on vacation all of October. Okay? I envy our European friends sitting here, because a month vacation is typical. That's why, at least in my demos, I can say I'm going to take off for a month. All right, so I'm going to take off from October 4 to October 29th. All right, okay. So Dux is my only resource. Good. Let's get back to our conversation here. So during planning, you can maximize and take advantage of Microsoft Project for scheduling, defining your resources. Next, regardless of where you are in your project lifecycle, collaboration happens. Be it planning, executing, or controlling the project, collaboration between the team, your customer, management, it happens. And the beauty with Office 365, there's a lot of tools available that for project teams, it's pretty much God sent. Gone are the days of just relying on email to do a lot of these things. So let me show you a couple of scenarios on how you can maximize collaboration tools in Office 365. So for example, let me go back to my PMIS. And let's say, a lot of these templates are generic. So let's say I want to update this document. So I'll say edit in Microsoft Word, okay. And Word would fire up with this specific document. It's a change impact analysis worksheet. And what I need to do is review this document, first of all, to see if the template is valid, if the template is useful, and if the template is relevant for this type of project. So I'm looking at this document, and again, this document is sitting in the centralized repository in the document library. I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, you know what? It's too much text. I know my customers, they like pictures. You know who they are, right? But I'm not the picture kind of guy, so I need help. Let me ping my colleague here, see if he can help me. Let me look for Mike. Hey, there's Mike. You there? I need help. Are you there, Mike? Can you, oh yeah, Mike's typing. Okay. Can you update a document for me and make it pretty? That's cool. I haven't entered yet. He says, sure thing. Wow. You didn't know Office 365 could do that, huh? All right, so, okay. So what I want to do, man, my timing's off. What I want to do is just copy the URL or the address of that document. So I'll copy all that good stuff, Control C. And let me link it to Mike. So, okay, so he's going to work on that. So what's going to happen here? So I'm going to show you a couple of things. What I'm going to show you, and this is the beauty, this is the power of SharePoint 2010, is it comes with a co-authoring feature. Who's used SharePoint 2007 before? Okay, a couple of us. In SharePoint 2007, how would you collaborate with documents? Pretty much you do check in, check out, right? And, it's okay, but in certain times it's not effective. Because what happens is you have to check it out, and then somebody can work on it, they have to wait. It's not true collaboration. Everybody with me? Well, what I'm doing here with co-authoring is I fired up this document, I pinged Mike, and notice the document's still open. Mike will get on that document, and co-authoring capability would kick in. In a while, when Mike opens this document, what's going to happen is Word would alert me, hey, look, somebody's working on this document also, and that's the co-authoring feature. And as Mike is working on this document, from time to time, Word will ping me which section of the document Mike is working on. Isn't that cool? It's a tough crowd, man. Now, I don't know if you see this. It's kind of small. It says 2. I'll click on that. But it's going to show you right here. Yeah, authors editing this document. Docs and Mike. And with Office 365, you don't have to worry about configuring this. This feature in SharePoint is again, co-authoring part. There's a lot of other features. It's just there. Now, the other good point is, notice as Mike is working on it, from time to time, there's certain indicators that would say if it's available. Here at the bottom, it says updates available. So it looks like I can click that and see what's going on. And link is blinking. All done, Doc. See what you think. All right, let's check out what Mike did. I know Mike is a great artist here. Save. All right. So let's see what Mike worked on and how he made this pretty. What? Man. You see, that's what IT tells the business, right? Now, that's cool. That's all right. I know Mike very well. Let's give Mike a round of applause. Mike is back there. Now, given that I know this picture looks great. It's going to look good on a t-shirt. It's going to be a problem. Y'all with me? It won't fly with management. So I need to go back to my, and I can't remember what was there earlier. So I need to click on the review tab and say compare. Friends, remember, I'm in Word. This is all in Word. I can hit compare and say, can you compare this one that I'm looking at to a specific version, please? And voila, Microsoft Word, talked to my PMIS, pulled up all the different versions available. Compared to the very first one, because the last one was modified by Mike Taylor. Let me click compare, and Microsoft Word would do its thing. It's going to go back look at the old version, compare it, and produce pretty much a report for me on what changed and the difference between these two documents. Now, if we think about this scenario, look at that. Original, yeah, what's so funny? No, kidding. This is the original document. This is the revised document. Everybody see that? Let me ask you this. How valuable would this be? Think about your environment, in your environment. How much better is this compared to you have a document, you email it to 10 people, hey, look at this, update your stuff. They email 20 documents back. Now you're pulling your hair trying to figure out what to use, what to change. What if it's all centralized in a repository? Just leave it there. Co-authoring is on. Doesn't matter what people do. Right? Very powerful. So I'm going to close this. I'll work on it later. Don't save it. And a lot of different collaboration tools. Another scenario I want to show. So, a lot of communication happens in project environments. One of the beauty, not only with being able to centralize artifacts, files, information, is using SharePoint as a PMIS, you can leverage it to capture project communications as well. At least in my company, we use a discussion board a lot because one of the greatest lessons that we have, especially in projects with a lot of people, if we rely on email, like all the communication thread going back and forth, especially for a long-term project, and let's say I got audited, anybody has to comply with standards, HIPAA, yeah, SOX, right, FDA Part 11, ARRA, right, Run DMC. I'm checking if you're still awake. So one of the things that we do now, we said, look, anytime there's a project-related communication issue conversation, put it in the discussion board. Okay, so when is the vendor coming? Whatever. So put it there. So at least it's centralized, it's searchable, and if anybody needs to look at what happened, they can go to the PMIS. Now the problem is, as we all know, the tool is not the problem. The idea of putting communication on a PMIS is so different than what people are used to. I just shoot off an email when I need to talk to somebody. Agree? So how can we bridge that gap? Well, again, with a tight Office integration, I can take this discussion board, connect it to Outlook, and by the way, this feature has been there since 2007, if you have SharePoint 2007. I can take it to Outlook, see what we ended up with. The actual discussion board posting shows up in Outlook, kind of sort of like an email. And then I can reply to it and say next week, let's say this is somebody else, I could do that. Or I can create a new post in the discussion board. When are we hiring? Okay. Post. So I could do all this from within Outlook without even going to that PMIS. And just like the calendar that we saw earlier, the information I entered, voila, would be available in the project discussion board. When is the vendor coming? It should show next week, right? When are we hiring? The beauty of SharePoint as a project management platform is it doesn't matter what tool you're comfortable with, what you want to use. It could be a browser, it could be Outlook, it could be Word, it could be your phone, which we'll talk about in a while. Yes, sir? Absolutely. You connect one time, and the synchronization happens. And it respects permissions as well, meaning not just anybody can do this. You have to be part of the PMIS to be able to do this. Now, another example. So we looked at co-authoring. We looked at integration between out-of-the-box list and libraries with Outlook. Let's talk about another tool that's near and dear to our heart. This actually happened, one of our customers. We rolled out SharePoint 2010 for them. And they, at any given point in time, they have 100 projects that's going on. So from email, Excel, and all that, everybody started using SharePoint, just like what we do here. And one of the things we were doing is we're looking for standards or processes that we can improve. So one of the things we found is at the end of every month, project managers would have to submit an expense spreadsheet to Sally in accounting. Everybody with me? And Sally in accounting would have to take these 100 Excel spreadsheets, submit it via email, aggregate all this, and come up with a monthly expense, project expenses report. And she would typically spend 2 days doing that. This comes as no surprise. We know who Sally is at accounting. So in the pursuit of making people's lives easier, I talked to Sally. I go, Sally, I can help you. We can make it easier for you so you don't have to spend 2 days collating all these expense reports and coming up with a summary of the expenses. You know, the first thing she told me, if I'm going to learn something new, forget it. I only use Excel. I have 3 more years and I'm retired. I don't want to learn anything new. Do you feel the love? You know who Sally is. That's fine, Sally. I go, that's fine. I'm not even proposing that. In fact, I'm going to show you how you can love Excel more. I know you've been using Excel forever, but if you see this thing, you're going to love it even more. She goes, okay, whatever. I've seen you consultants make promises with those trees with couch and sunlight and angels singing. See what you have. All right, so Sally, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show this to you, very easy, and you don't even have to worry about it once we've set it up. Okay, so Sally, so let's open up a workbook, and let's say each spreadsheet in the workbook represents a project. So let's say this sheet will represent the Manila project. So I'll just make it simple so you'll see what's going on here. The first column, I'll use the item, so we'll put whatever was spent in the project. The second column is the amount. So I'm going to format the cell to currency. Okay. All right. And let's say I'm going to pre-populate with some data initially. Let's say the first thing that we're going to put here are coffee mugs. We had to buy a bunch of coffee mugs for the coffee shop. We spent $500 on it. Furniture. So I'm just going to put some data. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, Sally, check this out. Now what I'm going to do, Sally, is I will take this information. By the way, friends, what I'm doing here can be done starting with Excel 03 and SharePoint 2003. This is not a new 2010 thing, but it's been there out of the box forever. I'm going to highlight this spreadsheet or this data in this spreadsheet, and I'm going to convert it to what's called an Excel table. And as I convert it to an Excel table, voila, what do we see up on the top? Publish and allow sync. Very interesting. So I'm going to take this data, Sally, and again, I'm going to do this one time. I will take this information. I have to make sure I have the right URL. I will connect it. I will take the information and push it out to the PMIS. And more than pushing it out, I copied too much. All I need is a URL. Let's see. Oops. You know what? I'll just type it. I'm sorry. If you had a question, can you? I can't hear you. So later we'll open Q&A. There's a mic there. So I'm going to enter that. So I entered the URL. This is live in Office 365. I'm going to call it Project Expenses. Click Publish. Now, as I do that, what is Excel doing? Behind the scenes, Excel is talking to that SharePoint Online site, checking if I can do what I'm trying to do. And if I'm allowed to do what I'm supposed to do, it creates a new custom list called Project Expense, publish this information and keeps the connection open. So I'm going to view this list. There you go. Okay, so we're not done. So, okay, Sally saw this. All right, whatever. Bless your heart. If you're not from the U.S., there's this thing in the southern United States for my friends in Europe and Asia. If you're not from the U.S. and you go to the South means, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. And when people say bless your heart, it's actually not a good thing. You see a little old lady? Bless his heart, kid's ugly. It's just a free pass so you can say bad things, right? So I showed Sally this. I said, Sally, okay. She goes, bless your heart, ducks. Okay. I go, wait, we're not done. So what we're going to do now is, instead of project managers every month sending you an Excel spreadsheet, we're going to tell them not to do that anymore. We're going to tell project managers, go to your PMIS, go to your project site, and enter all your expenses there. And, okay, so as a project manager puts in their expenses, I bought a car. I bought computers. Okay? So as project managers do this, the beauty of this, again, one-stop shop. Everything about the project is there. It's centralized. But how is this helpful for Sally sitting in accounting in the other side of the world? This is helpful because Sally, on her desktop, this workbook is just sitting on her machine. I don't even have to tell her about SharePoint, none of that stuff. The last thing I told Sally, okay, Sally, so after we connected that, what you have to do, and we can make this button appear in your ribbon, you just hit synchronize, and voila, the information that was entered in the PMIS by the project team would now be available and would surface in your Excel spreadsheet. Do I get a clap for that? But wait, there's more. Not only is it available in your spreadsheet, as you look at the invoices, you can say, oh, that's not right. You guys didn't buy a car. Somebody didn't type it correctly. It's carpet. And you spent $3,000. And Sally can still update that information, take that information, push it back to that PMIS. And when she does that, let me hit refresh or try, okay? And we should see that carpet and $3,000 is there. 3 months later, Sally calls me up. She says, Dux, really, bless your heart, in a good way. Thank you. I used to spend 2 days checking my email, getting all these Excel files, coming up with this. Now I only spend about 4 or 5 hours just to validate the information. In fact, what I did, Dux, and you'll be proud of me, I was able to do 100 of these for 100 different projects. And on the 101st spreadsheet, I created like a summary. You know how in Excel you can create a summary sheet? You can grab data from all the other sheets. I put pivot tables and charts. It's really good. That saved me a lot. You see, the lesson here, when we deal with adoption and all that, it's not showing all the whiz-bang features of SharePoint, but it's helping people to solve real business problems. That is a problem for Sally in accounting, right? Now, if you're wondering how to do all this, I just sent a tweet, step-by-step instructions on how to do this. So follow me on Twitter. You should see it there. How in the heck are you doing that, Dux? You're typing away all that. I'm a project manager. I've scheduled all my tweets. Now, and there's a whole lot more you could do, right? So Office integration is very powerful with Office 365. I don't have to deal with setting it up. It's all there. Even more, mobile access is wonderful as well. Now, this is the latest and greatest version. Let me show you my phone here. Okay. All right. Is it showing up? Okay. You guys see that? Okay. So a couple of things. So this is the latest and greatest update to Windows Phone. It's called the Mango Update. Formally, it came out like last week. And coming from the Philippines, I have to tell you, and make sure you realize this, mangoes are much tastier than apples. You got that? Now, So what can we do? We live in a mobile-enabled world. And by the way, kidding aside, you don't have to have Windows Phone to work with all this. You can have any phone. We live in a mobile-enabled world where a lot of us use phones, rely on phones for a lot of different things. So let me give you a very practical scenario on how this would be quite useful. So let me go to the PMO site, okay? So when I say the PMO site, this is where I started, okay? And one of the things, if I look at the document library in my PMO site, we have a PMO notebook. For those not familiar with this concept, having a PMO notebook, it's really the idea of collecting nuggets of information. It's kind of like lessons learned, but it's going to be useful for the whole organization from a continuous project management improvement kind of thing. Y'all with me? And what we use is we use a document. And not only it's a document, we use OneNote for it. This is the exact same document. I kind of open it up, and nothing is really there. So, anybody use OneNote here? Isn't that a great tool? All right. So here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to go back to my Windows Phone. So, it so happened that a couple of things. So let me show you the Office Hub. You guys see that? Okay. So I'm going to click on the Office Hub. And as we look at the Office Hub, certainly you can use Office stuff, but there's SharePoint integration. And I entered the URL for my PMO site. So let me click on SharePoint Cafe PMO. So notice that I have all the lists and the libraries and the sites. So let me go to my document library, okay? And let me look for, you got all these other files. But as you guys see, there's a PMO notebook. Let me click on that, and that file will open up in the local OneNote client in my phone. There's that planning. There's that kickoff. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the exact same thing to what we saw on my desktop in OneNote. Now, here's what happened. So we're kind of new at this whole PMO notebook idea. I went to a big conference, and one of the things that I want to make sure I remember is I want to make sure I take pictures of people that have been influential in the conference around project management, right? So I'm going to take this group because you guys are very influential. They still have to work harder. So I'm going to take picture and collect all this in OneNote, and I'll show you in a while. All right. So you got to say cheese here. Okay. 1, 2. There you go. Hey, Joey, how are you? So now I took a picture, and let me bring it back to so you all saw I took a picture, right? So there you go. So in OneNote, not only can you take text, you can take pictures and all that good stuff. And notice what's going to happen here. So let's go back. All right. Make sure I'm saving it. So what's going to happen here as I come back to my copy of OneNote, depending on the internet connection. There you go. All right. Make sure. Okay. In about a few seconds, real time, the information I entered through my mobile device would sync not only with this OneNote notebook open in my document, and since this OneNote notebook is in the PMIS, it's going to be there as well. So again, in a few seconds, few minutes, this should come up. Come on. I'm going to blame the internet here. But instead of just waiting, maybe let me go ahead and do this. File. Sync. There you go. Sync now. Yeah, I set it's in progress, right? So it's syncing. Now, as it does that, it shows up. You can see the power of not only using, there you go. That's why these group is influential. They clap more. I mean, it's cool and all that, but think about project management world. How many times do we have to figure out email stuff, then somebody has to open it, we go back and forth. But what if you're in a critical situation in a construction project, and I know there's different groups of government agencies that use this because mission critical, take picture, go back to home base, they assess something, put notes in there, boom, goes back to their mobile device. Powerful stuff. and it's all there and it's all available. Now, what else can we take advantage of? We talked about initiating a project. You create a PMIS. We talked about using Microsoft Project to create your project schedules and start putting in your resources. We talked about collaborative tools. We talked about Windows Phone. Now let's talk about tracking your project. So how do you track projects? In a typical project scenario, we track commonly three things. We track the schedule. How's it going? We track our budget. We track change. And controlling or running project entails monitoring. So as a project manager, at a regular point in time, we need to get all this data, what's going on. And after we get the data, we analyze. Is it good? Is it bad? Do we have to change it up? What should we do? And if something has to change, we have to apply the action. So these are the three typical things project managers do. So how can tools like Project and SharePoint and Office 365 help us? You see, the beauty with 2010, out of the box, I can now publish my project schedule onto a SharePoint project task list out of the box. Okay? We're not using Project Server. I've never talked about Project Server in this session. Just straight up Microsoft Project Professional 2010 on the desktop can synchronize with a SharePoint project task list. So what does this mean? This means that project resources can enter updates on the PMIS. They go to their PMIS. They don't need Microsoft Project. And project managers can take the information, synchronize it back to Microsoft Project on their machine. So really all you need is a PM having Microsoft Project. Any custom field information can be used to generate reports as well. So let's look at that. Let's look at that. So let me go back to Microsoft Project. So let's say I'm about to run the project. I'm about ready to run this opening of a coffee shop. Let me go back to my Gantt chart view. And I need to assign ducks to all these tasks. Okay? So let me go ahead and assign ducks. Assign resource. Now, before I hit assign, what did we say about ducks? He's wishfully dreaming that he'll be off for a month. But the schedule says, based on this schedule, if we're going to start on the 11th, so all of October will get started, etc. So when I assign ducks, check out what happens here. So when I assign ducks, look at that, right? Suddenly this line got longer because all of October seems like nothing's getting done. But we all know why nothing's getting done. Ducks is, in theory, on vacation. That's another good thing with this tool. Now, even before you start, you show it to management. This is what it's going to look like for the schedule. Oh, what are you doing there? Are you guys slacking? How come nobody's working? Well, Ducks is the only resource you gave me, and he's going to go on vacation. Either you tell Ducks not to go on vacation or give me another resource. Right? That's the golden project management triangle. You can't have a flying car that's constrained by $10 in 2 weeks. So what's important to you, boss? If schedule is important to you, then you got to either get me another person or tell Ducks not to go on vacation. If you can't afford to hire anybody and Ducks by law has to take his vacation, then schedule has to be compromised. You can't get anything that's fast and cheap and ends up good. Anything that good and fast ends up cheap, and whatever that third one is. Right? So it is what it is. The boss man says, yeah, you're right. We can't get another one. Ducks has to take his vacation. Let's save this schedule. And also, to start running the project, so notice that it's saving it directly to the PMIS. We're going to baseline this schedule. Anybody know what baselining means? Baseline? Sir, if you can speak up, baselining. Very good. It's to establish a reference point so that we can have something to compare against. And that's one of the most fundamental project management concepts. And again, it shocks me. People don't do that. And so I go, how do you track? Oh, we're always on schedule. Every week we do a status update. It's always like green. Because you're not comparing it against anything. So let's set the baseline. Let's freeze this version of the schedule. And as I do that, let me zoom in so you kind of see the effect here. Notice we suddenly have two sets of bars. The bottom one is your baseline. That's not going to change. The top one will be the actual. As you start doing the work, collecting information, it's going to compare if you're ahead, you're behind, what's going on. All right? And then even better, I can, again, flip the table and start looking at things like variance. So I haven't done anything yet. So this is the current schedule. This is the baseline schedule. But as you see, when we start rolling and things change, it'll start calculating the difference. Now, this is all good. I'm ready to publish this. So I'm going to go to the backstage. I'm going to hit File and hit Save and Send. And I will pick Sync with Task List. And I'm going to enter the URL, https iec.sharepoint.com/sites/spc11/mnl. That's the URL. Let me hit validate. Let me make sure it's checking. Okay, so it checked. It knows that the site exists. Now, before I do anything, I want to show you one thing, friends. If I go to my PMIS, notice there's a project task in there. This is the project task in SharePoint 2010. It looks different than the prior version. A lot of great improvements. The look is similar to Microsoft Project. So from Microsoft Project, I'm going to pick the right project task list. It's called Project Task. Sync. So what it's doing, it's taking the information. Okay, it's just going to say that it's going to remove the automatic scheduling. So when a resource enters their update, it's not going to affect everything right away. So it's taking the information and publishing it to my project task list. Very similar to what we saw in Excel earlier. So as it's doing it, it's done. Let me go back to my PMIS and my project task list. Let me hit Enter. And friends, you see that the information is there. So next step. So how would this look now, Ducks? How would it work, right? How would it work? Well, what we're going to do, okay, is, by the way, notice how what's published, it published whatever view I was at, which is fine. I'm going to tweak it anyway. So the way we track progress, at least in my projects, is we don't use %, because % doesn't really mean anything. I want something measurable. So what I want to do is capture when my resource actually started or when they actually ended. Everybody with me? Because now I can compare actual start and baseline start. So how do you do that, right? How do you do that? Well, okay, so let's go and do this. Let me go back to my Microsoft project. All right. So let me flip my view real quick here. Let me go back to my entry table. All right. And let me go to my backstage. And notice there's a button there where sync is at called Manage Fields. You see, the beauty of this is I can take any field available in Microsoft Project and make it available in my project task list. So since in our standards, we measure actual start. When did you actually start? Resource. And let's add another field, actual finish. Okay? You got actual start, actual finish. And in addition, friends, I want also to publish out what's called duration variance. What do you guys think that is? Duration variance? Anybody? The difference between your planned duration and what actually happened. And why do you want that, Ducks? I'm going to sync this. The reason why I want to show the variance is the data will now be available in Project Task List, which I can use later to build my dashboards in my PMIS. And you'll see this. So now, it's publishing, it's taking the data, so it's going to do it. Let me go back to my PMIS and start tweaking the view so I can see it, or my resource can see it appropriately as I want him or her to see it. So I'm in my project task list. Let me hit modify view. And I'll just turn on and turn off things I want to see and not see. Okay, so, don't worry about duration. Just show the current start and finish. Don't even show baseline. Don't even show % complete, description, priority. We don't care about that. What I want to see, though, or what I want to publish, notice this. Actual start, actual finish. Okay? In fact, I want to line it up nicely. Actual start, let's make that column 5. Actual finish, let's make them column 6. Okay? That's all I want to show in the view, so when the resource gets in, It's not a lot to deal with, and there you go. All right? So, what's the next step? The next step now is the project is running. Based on our standards, the resource would know what to do and not to do. So the resource is trained to go in here and put in when they actually start and finish. And again, all this without Microsoft Project for the resource. They just go to the PMIS and they're able to enter it. So yeah, Ducks, we kicked off on the 11th, and then I took a vacation right after that. Okay. And then after I got back, I was supposed to start this task called Write Project Charter on the 31st, which I did. Good job for me. And I was supposed to get it done on November 4th. Well, something happened. It took me longer to complete. Everybody see that? So the resource took more time than he or she was supposed to, 6 more days in fact, and nothing changed, and we don't want stuff to change because it's the job of the project manager to analyze what happened. You know, we talked about monitoring, analyzing, controlling. So now what the project manager can do based on their processes and standards, they can go to Microsoft Project, File, and hit Sync. And now that same set of information would be available, there you go, in Microsoft Project. Okay? It's still writing, but notice it published it. And as the PM sees that, the PM can call the resource, why was it late? Well, I got sick. Right? So, let me show you that. All right. Now, certainly, once this change, I'm pretty sure it's going to affect the rest of the project. Because, no, look at that, how much longer it took. So I can, as a PM, I can highlight all this stuff. I can say, task, auto schedule, show me what the impact is. So this is where project is powerful in managing and monitoring your schedule. Well, Doc, since the resource was behind, this will be the impact of the rest of the project. Right? Well, c'est la vie. That's life. I can't do anything about it. I'll just take this and republish it so the new schedule will go out, sync it again, and as it syncs, okay, once it syncs, let's go back to my project task list in Office 365. Let me hit enter. I should see a new finish date right there. And if the resource assigned had alerting turned on, they'll get an alert. Ooh, whatever task was just updated. Okay. Now, Docs, this is great, but you've connected a lot of stuff to Outlook. Can I connect this project task list to Outlook? You see, friends, the question is not can you do it in SharePoint. The question is how do you do it in SharePoint, Grasshopper? I missed that show, you know. Anyway. So check that out. All the tasks showed up in Outlook, which means I can update it while still in Outlook. I don't even have to go to the PMIS. Long live Office 365. So I show you a couple more things. I know I have some time remaining. Next up, let's talk about dashboarding. Let's talk about what will get you promoted back at work. Okay? So the beauty with Project 2010, there's a lot of options to build reports and dashboards. In fact, I've listed some. So I want to show you a quick example of building these dashboards and, again, tying it back to what we've been doing. So here's the scenario. Since I don't have a lot of updates here, the dashboard might not look pretty because what we could do here is we can take duration variance and start building like red, amber, green, stoplight, right? If it's anything, if duration variance is between 0 and minus 3 days, it's a green. So you could do all that stuff, but we don't have enough data. So here's what I'm going to do instead. Let's say, for example, management is interested to see in a pie chart how we're spending on the project. Because if the data is too much, we can't visualize. So management wants to see expenses visualized. Okay, we can do that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go to the PMIS homepage. All right. Oops. And I'm going to go to the PMIS homepage, MNL, okay? And in the homepage, I'm going to put an expenses dashboard or pie chart on there. So I'm going to the page, and I'm doing this as a project manager, not a techie, not somebody who knows programming. I was just taught how to use this based on my needs. And I will insert what's called a chart web part. For those not familiar, web parts are little functional components you can put on SharePoint pages. And part of the web part, there's indicator, you can do KPIs, you can do a lot of other stuff. I'm just going to use a simple chart web part just to prove my point and show my example. So as I put that there, all right, there's a generic one, so I need to update it to display the appropriate information. So I'm going to customize this first. I need a pie chart, pie right there. Let's make it a little sophisticated. You can change colors, change size, what have you. Let me just hit finish. And let me go ahead and tie it to that expense list. Connect chart to data. I can tie it to different kinds of data. But what I'm interested in is to tie it to my expense list, project expenses, next. So it shows the existing data that's there next. And by the way, friends, you can put in formulas that you know in Excel. Only show anything that's $500, whatever. So let me hit finish. And there you go. And not only is the chart a representative of the expense list, but this chart will display the expense list real time. So which means if paid, I'll just put contractors, if the PM updates this, okay, I pay them $5,000, right? Or $50,000, that's a lot of money. $5,000, okay? So if the PM updates that, what does that mean? Since the chart is tied to it, refresh, you'll see the chart get updated, contractors right there. Wait a second, ducks. Didn't you tie the expenses to Sally's Excel sheet? Right? So does that mean Sally, let's say Sally got an invoice that wasn't entered, right? So first off, I will make sure I sync this so I have the same data, right? So Sally got an invoice that wasn't entered in the PMIS for expenses. So what that means is Sally can enter more information. Okay? They bought, supplies, whatever, for $3,000. Sally can enter the information. Again, Sally doesn't care about other tools but Excel. Synchronize it back. And once she does that, that information certainly would be available in the expense list, supplies, which in effect would be displayed in that pie chart, supplies right there. Do you like that, guys? The power of these tools is available. It's in your hands. You can automate project processes. I'll just kind of explain this quickly. There's a lot of great workflow sessions in this conference. One of the beautiful things with SharePoint is workflows that's built in. So for example, I can, as a project manager, I can create a simple change request list. And we know change management, change request is a great idea, but it falls into the cracks because the process is never automated. It's always via email, whatever. But what if you can put rules to say, if somebody puts in a change request, make sure you ping the change control board, they have to do this. If they don't do this, ping them again. So you can build all those rules. And the way you build those rules is through workflows. Either you can use out-of-the-box workflows that comes with SharePoint, or, okay, so you can build workflows, or you can use tools like SharePoint Designer or third-party tools. But in short, you can start automating these. And just like what I've been doing, I, as a project manager, can do it because no programming is involved. There's a lot of great workflow sessions. If you're interested in InfoPath, another great way to build form-like capabilities and embed workflows. So make sure you check those out. But hopefully, friends, I made the case for you that we can do better than email. I made the case for you that with the tools you have right now, Project 2010. And if you're saying, well, Dux, we don't have SharePoint 2010, no more excuses. There's Office 365. Right? And if you want to prove the value, well, Dux, they won't let me go to the cloud or whatever. Sign up for free for 30 days. Show this demo to your boss, and let's see if he would change his mind. Thank you for coming. Any questions I can take? So I know you had a question on Exchange. The calendar, somebody had a question on Exchange, right? The calendaring thing I did had nothing to do with Exchange. It's SharePoint talking to Outlook client.
You have to be in the cloud completely. You can't sync between the cloud and on-prem.
You can.
How are you doing that?
you'll end up with 2 accounts. So it will challenge you with a second set of account in the cloud. I'll take 3 more questions, but before I forget, right after this session at 12, I'll be at the Lightning Tools booth. In this afternoon, I'll be in the Microsoft Project booth. So if you have questions, you can come then. Yes, sir.
You talked about multiple people collaborating or co-authoring.
Yes, sir, co-authoring.
Does that work in project as well?
Not in project. Not in project. Okay. Yes, sir.
Which template did you use?
Which template did I use? I built it.
I know you built it. What was your base, though?
Blank site.
Blank site.
Blank site template. And we looked at the needs that we have, the kind of list we need, etc. So, okay, good to see you. Question?
Can you have multiple project task lists synced to a master project list?
Can you have multiple project task lists synced? The way it works, each project task list is specific to a schedule. So you can't make them roll up to a single project schedule. All right, well, thanks again, friends. We'll see you later. Come by the project booth. I'll answer more questions that you may have. Okay?